When Saudi investors greenlit Project B, they didn't just aim to build a league. They set out to control a sport. Using financial force as a tool, they've already rewritten the playbook in golf and soccer. Women's basketball was next, and the timing couldn't be more opportunistic. While the WNBA stalls over basic reforms, still battling unresolved labor issues and clinging to outdated infrastructure, Saudi Arabia is positioning its new league as a global standard. Luxurious, expansive, and impossible to ignore.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The message to players is clear. Your career can be bigger than this. 4 top athletes like Caitlin Clark, who already face insufficient compensation and shaky league support, the appeal of something new isn't just understandable. It's inevitable. Project B isn't a side project. It's a fully funded power shift that challenges what women's basketball has always been and demands a new kind of response. If the WNBA doesn't deliver urgent, player-focused change, the question won't be which stars leave, but whether any will stay. Caitlin Clark just walked away from the WNBA, straight into a $100 million Saudi-backed contract. Let that sink in. The biggest name in women's basketball, the athlete who was supposed to be the WNBA's breakout superstar and its most bankable face in years, has officially taken her talents to Project B, a global, Saudi-funded league launching next season. And it's not just a headline grab. It's a full-blown threat to everything the WNBA has spent decades trying to build. Because this isn't just one player changing leagues. It's a turning point, a power move. And for the WNBA, it's an alarm going off at full volume. This new league, let's be very clear, isn't playing games. Project B is backed by billions. It's being built with the express goal of outshining the WNBA, not just coexisting with it. Their strategy? Drop the cash, build elite infrastructure, and treat women's basketball like a premium global product. We're talking international tournaments, first-class travel, state-of-the-art training facilities, and multi-million-dollar contracts being handed out like candy. For top players, it's more than just tempting, it's undeniable. Meanwhile, the WNBA is still locked in a tug-of-war with itself. The league is struggling to solve long-standing issues. Underfunding, low salaries, inadequate travel conditions, and unresolved collective bargaining talks. All of that was already simmering under the surface. Then Caitlin Clark got injured, and suddenly, all the league's shortcomings were front and center in neon lights. Her injury wasn't just unfortunate timing. It exposed the league's lack of urgency, its poor communication, and its fragile infrastructure. Updates came slowly. Transparency was minimal. The face of the league was out, and no one seemed prepared to handle it. And in that silence, Project B made its move. They saw the cracks in the system and wasted no time offering a different reality. One where athletes don't have to compromise health for hustle. One where salaries actually reflect their value. One where being elite doesn't come with economy-class travel and outdated facilities. This is how disruption works. Not with chaos, but with cold, calculated precision. They're not here to talk about growing the game. They're here to own it. It's not the first time we've seen this play. Look at what Gulf countries have already done in men's sports. Buying teams, creating rival leagues, forcing historic organizations to bend or break. This is the same playbook. It's just the women's game that's on the table now. And the WNBA? It's looking more vulnerable than ever. Let's talk about how we got here. The WNBA has been criticized for years for its slow response to player needs. The leadership has consistently talked about long-term goals while failing to address present-day problems. Players have asked for better travel, modern training resources, and salaries that match their workload and visibility. Instead, they've gotten promises, delays, and a league that still feels like it's in beta mode. Meanwhile, Project B is launching next season with none of that baggage. They're building from scratch, with unlimited funding and no need to cut corners. Their mission isn't to evolve slowly. It's to leapfrog every other league in the sport. And now that they've signed Caitlin Clark, they've got the face of the next generation locked in. That changes everything. Her decision to sign that deal doesn't just represent a personal win. It signals a larger shift in player mindset. Loyalty to the WNBA isn't a given anymore. The idea that athletes should sacrifice earning potential and comfort just to support a league that doesn't fully support them, that era is ending. Fast. Clark's move will open the floodgates. Other players, especially the ones watching from the sidelines, frustrated with slow reforms and low pay, are already calculating their worth. And now, they have a benchmark, a $100 million benchmark. What happens when more stars follow her lead? When your top-tier athletes start choosing luxury over loyalty, you lose more than just talent. You lose momentum. You lose fans. You lose your place in the culture. Because that's what's really at risk here, cultural ownership. The WNBA spent years building its identity as more than just a league. It was a movement, a statement, a platform. But identity without infrastructure is fragile. You can't keep telling players they're part of a movement if they're still flying commercial and rehabbing injuries without top-tier support. At some point, those ideals get tested. And right now, they're failing the test. The Cultural Shift Project B is engineering is not subtle. They're not trying to be a sideshow or a summer exhibition league. They're building a global competitor, one that holds its games across continents, one that sees women's basketball as a serious, profitable sport, not an afterthought. That international focus, that's a problem for the WNBA. Because while the WNBA remains mostly domestic and regional, Project B is looking to globalize the sport. They're staging tournaments around the world, reaching new markets, pulling in fans who've never been part of the WNBA audience. And once that global footprint takes hold, the balance of power shifts fast. Visibility, reach, and money, all moving away from the WNBA's hands. This is how sports empires get built. And this is how legacy leagues get left behind. The issue isn't just that Project B is flashy and rich. It's that the WNBA's own internal struggles have left it wide open to be overtaken. Leadership delays, broken promises, a chronic underinvestment in player welfare. All of it adds up. And Caitlin Clark's departure just put it all on blast. Let's not forget, this moment didn't come out of nowhere. The WNBA has had plenty of warnings. Players have been vocal about their needs. Fans have echoed the same frustrations. Every year, the same stories play out. Charter flights become a trending topic, then fade. Salary inequality gets a press cycle, then gets shelved. Injury management, health protocols, international expansion, it's always in discussion, never action. And now, while the WNBA is still discussing, Project B is executing. There's a very real risk here. If the WNBA doesn't act immediately, if it doesn't overhaul revenue models, upgrade facilities, and double down on player-first policies, it could start losing not just players, but public confidence. Because here's the brutal truth. Fans go where the excitement is, where the best players are, where the game feels like it's moving forward. And right now, that's not the WNBA. If more stars walk, and Project B becomes the go-to destination for elite women's basketball, the WNBA doesn't just lose games, it loses its seat at the table. It stops being the authority. It stops being the league. And once that perception shifts, it's hard to claw back. Caitlin Clark's deal is more than just a pay bump, it's a statement. The WNBA is no longer the only option. And unless something massive changes, it may no longer be the best option either. So now the question becomes, how does the WNBA respond? Do they keep trying to tweak their way through a full-blown crisis? Or do they finally do what players have been asking for? Go all in on investment, transparency, and modern operations? There's no middle ground anymore. The league can't afford to wait. Because whether the WNBA likes it or not, the game has changed. And Project B just made the first move. Hit that like button if you're still trying to process the chaos that just landed in the women's basketball world. Share this video with someone who's been following the league for years, or if someone who thinks sports shakeups only happen on the men's side. And drop a comment below. Does this deal mark the end of the WNBA as we know it? Or is it finally the wake-up call the league's been needing? Don't forget to subscribe, because this story, it's just getting started. And Just like that, the center of gravity in women's basketball has shifted. One deal, one player, one league. That's all it took to tip the balance. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't just any signing. She was the future, the one the WNBA had been banking on. The generational talent who could have carried the league into a new era of relevance, revenue, and respect. Instead, she's leading the exodus. Now, the WNBA is left trying to hold the line while the ground underneath them is moving. And the worst part? They saw this coming. They knew the stakes. They've seen the exact same play unfold in other sports. Golf didn't believe LIV golf would catch on until it did. European football leagues laughed at golf-backed clubs until they started poaching Ballon d'Or winners. Money talks. Prestige follows. And now, the same formula is being applied to women's basketball. Project B isn't coming to collaborate. They're coming to control. And with Caitlin Clark as their opening statement, they've shown exactly how they plan to do it. Through aggressive investment, global reach, and by giving players what the WNBA hasn't. Respect, safety, stability, and a salary that doesn't feel like a compromise. This isn't just a loss, it's an exposure. Because if Caitlin Clark, the most hyped rookie in league history, is willing to bounce this early in her career, it says something deeper than just chasing a bag. It says the environment she walked into wasn't built to support her in the first place. That the promise of the WNBA, the glamour, the growth that this league is next, wasn't backed up with the reality of being an athlete in it. And the fans? They're not blind to it. They've seen the footage, the cramped travel, the outdated training spaces, the tight salary caps, the superstars rehabbing with limited support, the silence around injuries that should have been handled with transparency and urgency. Caitlin's injury wasn't just a physical setback. It was a mirror held up to the WNBA's biggest weaknesses, and it reflected every single one. That's where Project B found its opening. While the WNBA was tangled up in internal politics and financial limitations, Project B moved fast. They didn't need years of meetings, advisory panels, or slow-roll rollouts. They built a plan, funded it, and executed. They didn't just talk about investing in women's basketball. They actually did it. And it was enough to lure away the biggest name in the game. If that doesn't shake the WNBA's foundation, what will? Because it's not just about what the WNBA is losing. It's about what Project B is offering. Global tournaments, billion-dollar backers, a spotlight that isn't dimmed by being treated like a side act to the NBA. Project B wants women's basketball to be the main event. Not a cause, not a charity, not a second-tier product. A business. One that values its stars, not just in marketing, but in compensation and conditions. For years, athletes in the WNBA have been told to wait. That the money's coming. That growth takes time. That they're part of building something. But what happens when someone else comes in with the finished version? Because let's be honest, how many more years were they supposed to wait? Clark's departure sends a message to every player in the league. You don't have to build the future from scratch. You can go to it. And that's dangerous for the WNBA. Because while they're still clinging to the narrative of steady growth and long-term vision, the talent is making decisions based on the now. Players have short careers. They can't afford to be patient forever. And if one league offers them real-time protection, earnings, and a global platform, while the other still feels like a work in progress, that choice becomes obvious. This is where things get existential. Because the WNBA isn't just fighting to retain players, it's fighting to define what women's basketball is. For years, it held that power. It was the league, the proving ground, the place where the best went to be seen. But with Project B stepping onto the scene, that monopoly is gone. Now it's a competition, and the WNBA is entering it from behind. So what does survival even look like? It's going to take more than statements and social media tributes. It's going to take real, foundational change. Revenue models that actually reflect the scale of the sport. Collective bargaining agreements that don't leave players in limbo. Facilities that rival the ones their male counterparts take for granted. International expansion that isn't just theoretical. In short, the WNBA needs to become the league it's always said it wants to be. Because if it doesn't, Project B will, and players will follow. let's not underestimate the cultural fallout, either. If more stars defect, and let's be honest, they will, it doesn't just affect game quality. It changes who owns the narrative. Right now, the WNBA is still culturally dominant. It has the media attention, the brand recognition, the movement energy. But movements need momentum, and losing Clark hurts that badly. The league leaned hard on her for a reason. She was marketable, exciting, a highlight machine. Her debut was one of the most anticipated in league history. And within months, she was out with an injury and signed to a different league. That's not a misstep. That's a collapse in strategy. And the timing couldn't be worse. With unresolved bargaining agreements still looming, leadership questions hanging in the air, and fans losing patience, this couldn't have landed at a worse moment. Now, the league has two options: adapt or dissolve slowly. Because Project B is not slowing down. They're launching next season, and they've already signaled that they're not just here to host off-season exhibitions. They're here to own the calendar, control the story, build a league that doesn't just match the WNBA, but surpasses it. And if the WNBA doesn't respond immediately with concrete investment, full-scale reform, and a player-first overhaul, it will get left behind. Not gradually, not quietly, but very, very publicly. This is what disruption looks like. And Caitlin Clark was the tipping point. If you've been following the WNBA for years, this might feel like whiplash. But to the players, it's been a long time coming. They've been sounding the alarms, asking for better, pushing for change. And when the league didn't move fast enough, someone else came in and offered them exactly what they needed. There's no sugarcoating this. The WNBA got outplayed. And unless it responds with urgency and humility, this won't be the last headline like this one. What happens next depends entirely on whether the league is willing to look in a mirror and change. Because the players, they've already moved on. The truth is the WNBA is out of time. They can't stall this one out. They can't spin it. They can't patch it with a tribute video and a press conference full of vague promises. Caitlin Clark signing with Project B is a line in the sand moment. The kind that forces an entire industry to choose a side, evolve, or stay behind. And right now, the players, the product, the heartbeat of the league are looking at what Project B is offering and asking, why didn't we have this already? Because let's stop pretending like this is about greed. It's not. These aren't luxury demands. They're professional standards. Private travel, safe facilities, competitive salaries. These are the bare minimums athletes in every other major league expect and receive. The fact that women's basketball players are still fighting for them in 2025 is the real scandal here. So when Project B came along and said, here, you don't have to fight for it anymore, the answer wasn't complicated. It was overdue. And Caitlin Clark's deal isn't just a domino. It's the wrecking ball. The whole model the WNBA has relied on, building slowly, relying on loyalty, banking on players' belief in the cause, that's gone. This deal just shattered the illusion that the league could compete without matching value. Now, they have to prove their worth, because the talent pool knows what it looks like when someone else invests like it means it. And it's not the WNBA. Let's be honest, too. The greater good argument has run its course. The idea that players should accept less because they're building something bigger, that only works when they're treated like partners, when their voices matter, when they're not flying commercial after back-to-backs and hoping their injuries don't derail their entire season, because rehab support is bare bones. You can't ask for sacrifices while treating players like afterthoughts. Caitlin Clark saw that firsthand. She came into the league with sky-high expectations, record-breaking college numbers, massive fan engagement, and then got dropped into a system that looked 5 years behind the hype. The pace, the media circus, the lack of protection, it wasn't sustainable. And her injury became a perfect storm, not just because it sidelined her, but because it exposed how unequipped the league was to handle someone like her. The communication around it? Disastrous. Updates were delayed. Fans were confused. The league went silent. It made people question, is anyone in charge over there? Does anyone know how to manage a star athlete like this? Because here's the thing. Clark wasn't just the future of the WNBA. She was the test case. The league's chance to prove it could handle superstardom. And they failed. publicly, on the biggest stage they've had in years. And while they scrambled, Project B was quietly setting the stage. No chaos, no drama, just a clean, polished offer. Everything the WNBA couldn't or wouldn't provide. It's not just the money, it's the control, the respect, the long-term vision. Players are watching, agents are watching, sponsors are watching. If you think Caitlin Clark's $100 million deal was a fluke, you're not paying attention. This is the blueprint now. And unless the WNBA matches that energy, financially and structurally, they're going to keep losing talent. The danger here isn't just star power walking out the door. It's cultural relevance. Because once the WNBA stops being the default destination for elite women's basketball, it becomes a feeder league, a second-tier product. The same way college hoops lost its grip when the NBA created new pathways for talent. The same way European golf lost control when LIV offered a bigger, better payday. And the WNBA isn't insulated from that just because it has history. History doesn't pay salaries. It doesn't guarantee media attention. It doesn't stop fans from shifting their focus when the biggest names in the game are suddenly overseas, playing in glamorous global tournaments, wearing new jerseys under new lights. That's the game now. Global. Player first. Fully funded. If the WNBA doesn't pivot immediately, fully and unapologetically, it's going to fall behind so quickly it won't even see it happen. This is the part where people start asking, what would it actually take to fix this? And the answer? Everything. The WNBA needs an overhaul, not a tune-up. That means more than increasing salaries by a few percentage points. It means rethinking the structure from the ground up, investing in modern infrastructure, providing charter flights, elite medical care, transparent governance, profit sharing, real media rights deals, international exposure. And it has to happen now, not in 5 years, not after another labor dispute, not after another star gets hurt and disappears from a season, because the clock is ticking, and Project B is already moving to sign more players. This isn't a fantasy threat. It's happening. And if the WNBA leadership is still treating it like some off-season side project, they're about to get steamrolled by a full-blown competitor with deeper pockets, sharper strategy, and less tolerance for mediocrity. If you're a fan of the WNBA, this moment should terrify you, but should also energize you, because this is the moment where change has to happen. The pressure is real. The stakes are higher than ever, and the players have leverage for the first time in forever. That means fans have leverage, too, because if you want the WNBA to survive this, if you want it to thrive, this is the time to speak up, to demand that the league finally prioritize its players over its politics, that it stops dragging its feet on basic necessities and starts treating women's basketball like the billion-dollar product it could be. Because if not, that future is going to happen somewhere else, under someone else's brand, with someone else writing the checks and telling the story. And the WNBA will be the league that almost was. So what do you think? Is Caitlin Clark's deal the start of a new era or the end of one? Can the WNBA course correct in time? Or is this the beginning of its long fade into the background? Hit that like button if you're still reeling from the magnitude of this move. Share this video with someone who needs to know what's really at stake here. And drop a comment. What should the WNBA do right now to avoid collapse? Tap subscribe, because trust us, this isn't the last power play we're going to see, and you're going to want a front row seat.